EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. J-Mac, how you doing on a Wednesday edition, brother, here in the middle of June, June 18th, brother, the dog days of summer.
June 18th, yeah, it's not even summer. It's going to get hot, too, around here locally. So, maybe a little bit too hot. We go straight from dismal to 97s and 98s. So, summer is almost here, June 22nd, I believe. We're getting closer and closer to camp. July 22nd reporting date. Quicker. Everything's quicker this off season. It's what happens when the team you cover wins the Super Bowl. It's, you have the shorter off season to begin with. We're right into the draft process. I remember how behind I was on the draft process. That's something we should talk about more, man. What Kansas City did was pretty amazing when you live it and to a certain degree, and we'll see how the players handle it. But it's quick. Everything's quick.
Man, there's no doubt, man. Everything is super quick. I think we're like 80-something days away, John, from the opener, somewhere in that range, under 3 months, if you can believe it. And you're right. The draft came up on it. Everything happened very quick, as you pointed out this offseason. It's a good takeaway by you. We got a great show planned today for everybody. I want to welcome everybody in. Thank all of our great viewers who have been here with us in the middle of the summer. We appreciate each and every one of you. All right, and we all are excited for the season with you. So we're looking forward to that. We got Mike Gill coming up in hour one, and Brandon.
We got frozen Zander Krause. I think, one of the things, the problems with streaming is, and hopefully I'm talking and you're hearing me. I never know if it's me.
I don't know if you can hear me.
I couldn't there for a second. So for a few seconds, so freezing up. The thing about streaming, and it's funny because Netflix, not Netflix, but Nielsen put out its ratings as far as fragmentation of television. And for the first time, this happened yesterday, for the first time, streaming was ahead of both cable and broadcast, both for the first time ever. More people watch streaming services than broadcast or cable networks combined. And that's the first time that happened. But, the one thing you don't have these issues with broadcast. So, I mean, everybody's like streaming. They spend all this money on streaming and you still have these issues. Get your act together, StreamYard.
It's me. I got to get my act together.
But no, we were talking before the air. You're plugged in. It shouldn't be an issue. It might be the internet company, might be streaming, whatever.
I got to call my guy down at 6 ABC. For those who were down there at the Eagles parade with me, and I'm trying to get the Starlink to work. I plug into John. I plug into the 6 ABC router. The producer over there was kind enough to let me plug in. We streamed all day live from the parade. Not one hiccup, not one glitch. I'm like, yo, what are you using, man? I got to make that investment because you remember we tried to do the Birds 365 in the morning, and it didn't work out too well.
It didn't work out. Didn't work out. Did you get the information, or they keep it close to the best over there?
No, he gave me the information. It's an expensive setup, but it's something that I could get. It's more for like remote, it's more of a remote setup that he had. Yeah. But no, it was nice.
Yeah, but anyway, that's funny. So I go on a tangent right away. That's what happens. You roll with the punches. But from the standpoint of the off season, I don't know where you were going, but that's with the off season, how quick it's gone. And I got a chance to talk to Dallas Goedert yesterday because he was doing media rounds. He's pushing. Dallas has long struggled with psoriasis, so he's teamed up to push medicine for those who suffer from psoriasis, and got to talk to him about a bunch of Eagles stuff, and one of the things I talked to him about was that off season. He's in his 8th year now, And he was also talking about tight end university, which is coming up later this month. And he's a big part of that. And he remembers going there his first year, and he was like the guy asking Travis Kelce and George Kittle all the questions, and Greg Olson all the questions, and trying to get better. Now he's the guy that people come to when they go there. The younger players, he's one of those guys. But also he's talking about the off season. He's like, after that, after July 4th, he's basically that's his rest time, and he's coming back for camp on the 22nd. You need to recharge those batteries. And you heard Saquon talk about it earlier as well, which I think raised some people's eyebrows. We were talking about it. And that's what you have to do. You can't just, this sport is brutal on the body, and you got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And it's a little bit different as you get older, and you have to be smart and manage your body better. And, Saquon said it, Dallas said it. Maybe it's different for the rookies who can still go a million miles an hour, but this game takes a toll on you.
Yeah, no doubt about it. How much do you think that'll impact them this year, John, coming up with this season? I mean, remember, they have been to Super Bowl 2 of the last 3 seasons. It wasn't just last year, so maybe that compounds a little bit. But they also have one of the youngest teams in the NFL, which I think should, in theory, would help with that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot. We just talked about Kansas City and how amazing it was what they were able to do. But you're right. I mean, the Eagles were there at Super Bowl 57, so they played the same level and then fell off. Obviously, one and done, and then they're going to the Super Bowl again. So 2 of the past 3 seasons, they've had this long season where everything's shortened. And I asked Jalen Hurts about that. And he said, took a little bit of a different tact. He did sort of rest a little bit more after Super Bowl 57. And this year he said he got right back to it. Maybe part of it was to just, get off all the other stuff that he's got to deal with. And it's interesting to see the different thought process of players. AJ right back to the grind as well. So everybody's different, but for guys like Saquon and Dallas, who's had some injury problems, it makes some sense to not go a million miles an hour.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We'll see how it shakes out. Johnny Mac, I had a nice segment planned for the Open before we had Mike Gill, but we're not really going to have time to do it now because we only got 7 minutes, and I apologize to everybody for my internet that's been kicking in and out. I'm going to try and get it fixed when we get to the break. But I wanted to ask you, and I wanted to do a fun ranking, not something that I think you would be upset by, but I wanted to rank like the best matchups, John, this year coming up for the Eagles. Like you always say, and I think you're right about it, but styles make fights, and matchups are so important when it comes to football, not just quarterback versus quarterback or, wide receivers versus wide receiver. I wanted to look at the matchups that the Eagles have coming up this year on the schedule. So we're not going to be able to do a full segment on it, but I do want you to just take a look and say, what matchups right now, John, jump off the page at you that you're excited for this year with the Eagles schedule?
Well, I think right off the bat, you think about who they beat to win it, and it's Washington in the NFC Championship game, and then the Rams in the divisional round. I mean, those are 2 teams that, because they lost to the Eagles and one was blown out and one gave them a real challenge. I think, and Kansas City's on the schedule as well, but I tend to, out of conference foes, I don't think it's typically as exciting for me anyway. Now, I know for others it is, but so I look at Washington, and obviously they have to play them twice later in the season. I think it's week 16. I got to pull up the schedule. I think it's week 16 and week 18. So that's going to be later in the season, and who knows? By that point, things could have gone wrong. There might be too many injuries for both teams. Who knows? But at least as we look at it right now, that's going to be very interesting to me. and then that Rams game, because I think the Rams are cognizant of how close they were and what they need to improve. So typically their season is based on, beating the teams in their division. That'll be the case, but I'm sure they're very hyper focused on understanding what the Eagles did to them, and that was basically bully them and run the football right down their throats. So, I'm sure they'll do everything to try to correct that. So that to me is probably the most interesting. Those are the most interesting matchups. And I'll have to throw, it seems every year recently, and most of them have gone very poorly. One was not, and that's at Tampa Bay, which is also pretty early in the season. They've really struggled down there, and Jalen's really struggled with Todd Bowles for whatever reason. So that's an interesting one to me. I know people are going to point to Kansas City and Buffalo. I don't know what it is. Out of conference foes in the regular season. Like, if you're going to lose a game, that's the game you want to lose.
Right.
I
They're
mean,
fun games because they're good quarterbacks and good teams, but you're right. They're the least meaningful games on the schedule, basically.
I mean, and when you're the Eagles, you don't want to lose any of them. So that's part of it. But
I feel like the Eagles have been pretty damn good in them, though, John, haven't they? They beat the Bills a couple years ago.
They win every freaking game. I mean, yeah, people really need to enjoy this because this ain't normal. The way they've won over the past, really, three seasons. You had the one lone collapse, and it was weird. It was I don't think anybody can still truly explain it other than they made a poor decision at defensive coordinator. And even that they made because their original plan, the timing didn't work out. And you gotta move ahead some way. And it didn't work out. And they tried to, all right, we can't get Vic Fangio. Who's the best Vic Fangio student? And they made a mistake. And they compounded that by moving away from Sean and going to Matt Patricia in season, which was even worse. But silver lining, guess what? If they finish that 10-1 season and say go win 14 games and then lose in the divisional round, Vic's not here.
Yeah. Saquon might not even be here.
Potentially, a lot of things.
Zach Bond probably wouldn't be here. Yeah, I mean, you can never go home, never go back and try and change it because every action has a lot of consequences to it. So both good and bad. So now, who do you think, John? I mean, you say that comment. I hope Eagles fans listen to that and appreciate you saying that. You should enjoy this. This team is rare. Who do you think is the biggest reason for that? Is it Jeffrey Lurie? Is it Howie? Is it Jalen and Nick? I mean, those two guys show up, and it's like, I've never seen winning like this, and Jalen's done it at every level of his career. So it's like part of me thinks it's him, but I see Howie. I think he's doing great. I see Jeffrey. I'm like, he does great. I think Nick's done a great job in his role. Feels like
I think there's two answers to that. The reality is, and it's boring, as Nick will say, it is a collaboration. It's everybody, basically, all those names you mentioned. And then there's a real life aspect of, everybody thinking they're the reason, which is human nature.
Right.
And I think you saw that more in Super Bowl 52. But I do think Jeffrey and Howie think, look at what we did with Doug and Nick. And I do think there's a lean towards, things go in a different direction. We can figure it out. And they're probably right because they run the thing. They run the thing the right way. But, I'm always going to lean towards players first, coaches second, and executives third. But Jeffrey's more than an executive. He sets the tone. I guess it's Jeffrey. I mean, because if you don't run the organization the way it's run and you get permission to run it the way it's run, you can't do what the Eagles have done.
Right.
So it all starts with him.
Yeah, and
given that permission.
Just because you're extended that olive branch too doesn't mean you're going to make all the right decisions or the right moves with it, and that's where Howie deserves credit. And then just because you're given a good team doesn't mean you're going to win and take them to the promised land, and that's where Hurts and the players and the coaches deserve the credit. Where with what they've done, it's an interesting combination of talent right now in Philly across the board. I do think the owner and the GM probably think it's more them, though, right?
They definitely did in Super Bowl 52.
What would have changed from 52 to 54 or 50 or 58, 59, whatever it was?
59, 57, 59, 52, 57, 59. Those are the Eagles' 3 Super Bowls in 8 years. But yeah, I haven't gotten as much of the, me. I think part of that is because everybody has gone, Howie's beyond reproach now.
Right. They don't have to anymore, right? I mean,
yeah, we got Mike coming up. I mean, yeah, people in the league are very jealous of Howie. And it's not they should be, because A, he's really good at his job.
Yes.
And B, he's in a very good position with an owner who allows him to do his job. And that's rare. But I think, everybody does it for him now. And Mike is a great guest to have, because he knows he was ground floor with me when we would get attacked for saying how he was a good executive.
I'm pretty sure I have a segment on the JAKIB channel at some point in maybe 2021 or maybe late 2020 after Doug was fired, of Mike saying how he's a top 5 GM. And I think he might have gotten roasted in the comments. But you two were way ahead of that. There's no doubt about it. Good stuff there. Let's get to Mike Gill as we speak about him now. He's in the green room. Make sure you guys follow him at Mike Gill Show on all his platforms, including a subscription on YouTube at Mike Gill Show over there. Mike joins us from 97.3 ESPN down the shore and 97.5 The Fanatic in Philly on the weekends. Mike, welcome to the show, brother. How you doing on this Wednesday morning?
I'm doing all right, boys. We got a little lull in the football calendar, but the Eagles are never on the back of people's back burner.
No, they never are. Not in this town, at least when they're this successful. It's interesting since you went there. Do you think it's the success? Do you think, obviously football's the top sport, but you see how people get hyped. But it's generally, because you cover all sports, it's generally for the Phillies, it's when they're good. It's like a morgue down there when they're not good. Now, luckily they've been good recently. We know what the Flyers are going through. We know what the Sixers went through. And with those particular teams, if they're good, there's a lot of interest. If they're not, there's not a lot of interest. With the Eagles, it'll waver a little bit when they have their rare down season, but there's still incredible passion. Do you think that's built in at this point, or do you think that could waver if they have a cycle of bad years?
No, because the fact that they've had the success that they've had, if they happen to go into a lull, that just brings people's fever for wanting to fix things. When teams go down, even with the Phillies right now, they're having a good year. You're 12 games over 500, but people like to complain, and then people like to fix things. People like to think that they know more than the people who were in charge, which goes to, I think you guys were talking about Roseman for a little while there. It's, I know more than Roseman. I could do a better job than Roseman. We talk about all the time. Fans generally default to blaming coaches because in their mind, they know they can't play the game at that level. But many people do think that they are qualified to say, coach, manage a baseball team or coach a basketball game. I don't know that people, football's a little different. There's a lot of intricacies in that, but I do think a lot of people think they could be a general manager and run a team and pick a roster, which is why those people always do get so much scorn from fans, is because it's a job that fans do think they could do. And, if you have a team like the Eagles that had a down year, I think the passion would come out a lot more, as opposed to some of the other teams like, the Sixers. While I think people think they could, do the job of Daryl Morey or whatever, the reason I think that the passion kind of goes away is because of the fact that the season was just so non-competitive that you're almost like, okay, this is ridiculous. It's not competitive. I'm not even giving you, because you have time. Football allows you to still have your life. You only need to dedicate one day to investing in the season. So the other sports, you got to invest every day. And some people just say, okay, I'm not investing my time every day if you're going to give me this effort. Football, a little different.
Yeah, baseball too goes to that. I want to ask both of you guys this: how close are this as this era of the Eagles to a dynasty? And I mean that in the real sense, not in an Eagles fan. Oh, we're a dynasty. Like, there's dynasties in the history of the NFL that are well talked about, documented. The Steelers of the 70s, the Niners of the 80s, and the Cowboys of the 90s, and even the Patriots, obviously, in the 2000s. But how close are the Eagles to that? Is it one more Super Bowl? Is it two more Super Bowls in the next couple of years? Like, how close do you guys think we are to actually cementing ourselves as a dynasty in the NFL?
Oh, man. The NFL is tough. The Kansas City Chiefs, what they've done, what the Patriots did, you do see these elongated runs of success. I mean, how long do you have to give the Eagles? And are they in the middle of it? I mean, the fact that they won one in 17, then got another one here, is the 17 the start of, was that where you put the beginning marker of this run for the Eagles? It's a good question in terms of where does the length of success, because between 17 and to this point, they've only missed the playoffs once, right?
Yeah, that was Doug's last season. And he obviously, they had a ton of injuries. That's when Lean got hurt, I believe. They had a bunch of offensive line injuries, and they kind of fell apart. And then they picked it right back up. But, that first year with Nick Sirianni, they weren't considered a good team, even though I think a lot of people underrated them because they forgot that, hey, if their offensive line got healthy, that was going to make a big difference. And it turned out to be the case. And all of a sudden they start out very poorly, 2-5. Nick gives the play calling to Shane Steichen about week 8. And then was that Chargers game. And then they take off with the running game specifically and make the playoffs as a surprise sort of playoff team. And then they got trounced in Tampa Bay, as they typically do with Todd Bowles. But so I think that first year, nobody thought they were really that good, I would say. And then they just took off in the 2017 season, which was Super Bowl. That was 2017 was Super Bowl 52, but 2022, 2022 was Super Bowl 57. Nick's first one, Jalen's first one, and they played great in the Super Bowl. I think they outplayed the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I thought Jalen was the best player. I thought he was better in Super Bowl 57 than Super Bowl 59. I thought he was the best player on the field in Super Bowl 57. So since that time, I think we're a little short of dynasty because I think it's 22 to right now. They're in the midst of it, and they got 2 of 3. If you win 2 more, I think it starts there. You got to have 3 to be a dynasty. You got to have 3.
What's the minimal number of where it starts?
I think it's 3. 3 wins. 3 wins. What
date range?
Yeah, because that's the question. Like, Mike, this is my problem with using 2017, though. It's like a different regime. Now, the only other dynasty I think that had multiple quarterbacks was who? The Niners. They had Joe Montana, and I guess who am I missing? Did they have Steve Young? Steve Young, right? Steve Young. So that's the only other the Steelers had Terry Bradshaw. The Cowboys had Joe Montana or Troy Aikman. Mahomes, the Chiefs, Brady with the Patriots. Like, I feel like
the 49ers also shifted from Bill Walsh to George Seifert. So to me, that's a breakoff point. Like, I don't put 2017 with the current group.
I agree with you, John.
But everybody's got a different definition. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it was Doug and Carson's team, and to a certain degree, Nick Bowles. To me, that's completely different than what's going on now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I think maybe 2 more with this group would cement it. I don't know. It depends if you factor in.
Well, I think you
17.
got to win 3 over, say, 8 year. They're at 8 year. Three Super Bowls in 8 years is pretty stinking impressive if you win them all. But
Quite frankly, 2 in this time frame is
Yeah.
impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Based on the landscape. I mean, there's a while there where you had the Patriots basically getting one. What they get 6 in a 20-year span.
Yeah.
So that's an elongated run of success that generally, if you're
to that point, does anybody consider the Jim Kelly Bills a dynasty? No.
no,
Does
not
anybody
in terms
consider
of-
Bud Grant Vikings in the 70s a dynasty? No.
No,
They-
I think. Well, they didn't get the ultimate prize. They had a great run of success, but not dynasty level success.
Exactly. Which I say all the time on this show. Zander could tell you what Buffalo did is more impressive than winning one Super Bowl.
I mean, yeah, and it's funny because we go back to this Phillies team. They're good. They're probably going to make the playoffs, but if you're not first, you're last. And most people don't believe that the Phillies are good enough to win the World Series. So therefore, if you're not good enough to win the World Series, you then stink. There is no middle ground. There's no level of
That's
success.
true. Ricky
There's
Bobby
no-
Yeah,
rules,
but part
man.
of that with the Phillies, Mike, you could thank the owner. I mean, the owner, to his credit, but he set the standard on what the fans should want. He said, "I want another championship in Philly." Well, that's now what everybody wants, and if it's not that, it's bust.
Yeah.
Well,
I always joke. I always joke about that movie because it's so true. And Gary Cole was the actor playing Ricky Bobby's father in Talladega Nights, and he's the one who was a drunk in the movie, and he's the one who said, "If you're not first, you're last." And the whole thing was it's obviously comedy for those who don't know, but the whole movie is Ricky Bobby grows up and he believes that if you're not first, you're last. And then at one point, which people forget, his dad said, "That's stupid. You can be first, you can be second, you can be third. There's a bunch of things you could be." And he was just drunk. But man, people have latched on to that, Mike. If you're not first, you're last. And from a sentiment, I'm not even from a joke, from a sentiment standpoint. If you don't win, and the best example of this is the Sixers, and you and I have had this argument for many years. If you don't win, you're worthless. You're worthless.
Absolutely. And there is no level of like the Edmonton Oilers going to the finals twice in a row. They've now lost twice. Like if they go again next year, like that would be unbelievable to get to the conference final, to the Stanley Cup final 3 straight seasons, but never to win it. You just get looked at as almost a loser. You don't get looked at as, man, what a run of success that you've had.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like the Eagles back in the Andy Reid era. They had a run of success. But I will say that Andy Reid run of success put the Eagles on a different level to the fans. I mean, that made the Eagles fans crave a Super Bowl even more. So while that level of success that the Eagles had back then sometimes is kind of looked at as not good enough, or I don't want to say somewhat a failure that they never won a Super Bowl, it did change the dynamics of the Eagles fan base and made it where the standard was if you don't win a Super Bowl, you then become a failure.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of smart fans who understand that, what they do today is still can be traced back to Andy Reid. Like he changed the whole organization. He turned them into when it comes to on the field stuff, because he's the one who turned them into what they are today. But there's a lot who don't understand that. And I'm surprised that there's so many who don't understand that. And why they don't understand it, because that's if you don't win, you're last.
Well, and like in the sports world, it's a fun dynamic of sports fans, doing what we do. People say, hey, like the fans, we're saying how the fans think. The fans also have an 8-hour job generally most days, where they have the release for them is just like, I didn't watch everything. I just am casually kind of paying attention, and then I'm just going to kind of like spew. It's well understood as to why fans make irrational thoughts sometimes, is because you're not down there every single day. You're not asking questions. You're not talking to people. You're not getting information from people. So the opinions are informed based on just your casual viewing. So when you're down there all the time and can kind of see it, you get it in this area where even if you don't win the Super Bowl, all the stuff that goes into building these teams, the fans will look at it from an inning by inning or day to day basis, where these organizations have pictures of what they want their organization to be 3, 5, 7, 9 years down the road. And that's where there's always a disconnect. The disconnect of, I want you to win the first quarter of this game. And if you're losing at the end of the first quarter, I'm going to boo you, right? Like you have failed that first quarter, and I wanted you to win that first quarter. Whereas they're looking at a much wider scope of things. And at the end of the scope, you're trying to set yourself up for as many bites of the apple at success that you can get.
Yeah. And that's, now we're going down a psychological tangent, and I'm like, wow. But what's amazing for so many fans, they are so confident in their beliefs. It is amazing to me. I wish I could be that confident.
Well,
Zander asked me,
it's the baseball. It's the big, I'm a big baseball guy too. And, baseball is the biggest one. Like, if you would have pinch hit for this guy there, the guy that you would have put at the plate, 100% would have got a hit. Yeah. No questions out. If you would have hit for that guy, the guy that I decided to put up in that spot, he would have came through. Or if you left that pitcher in, there's no way he wouldn't have struck the side out. Like, why would you take that guy? So, yes, every answer, and it's the same in football. Why did you throw the ball there? If you would have ran it, they would have got that first down. It's whatever happened. If you would have done the opposite, what you would have done would have been successful.
Yeah. Well, Zander asked me the question a couple weeks ago. And, since I started covering the Eagles on a daily basis, which was 2016, so I'm responsible for this run, by the way. I'm joking. Over that time, I've never missed a game. I probably missed 2 practices, open practices, knock on wood. Like, I've been around in this team, embedded with this team, talking to everybody around this team for that span. And Zander asked me the question, well, could you call a game? I'm like, could I call? Well, if you gave me the play chart, yeah, I could pick the plays. Could I build it? No. Could I teach it? Even more so. No.
Yes. Like, I coach baseball. Still, I had practice last night. I have practice tonight. Not for any crazy, but I coached a team that won the World Series. We won the Babe Ruth World Series. I've been to the World Series 4 times.
There you go.
Do I think you're
Joe Torre.
Do I think I'm qualified to manage the Phillies? Because no, not necessarily. I know baseball. I played college baseball. I mean, I know a lot, but football, I have been asked before, hey, would you want to coach football? Which I would like to do. My answer has always been, I just don't have the depth in designing plays. Like, I could not design an offense or the blocking schemes. I don't have that visual mindset of creating and the terminology and the verb. Like, I always laugh at who comes up with the names of these plays and how did you think of it? Like, GOAT 75, Razor. Like, why not just have it? Hey, that plays 32.
Great. Yeah, by the way, that's a legitimate argument. Why make it so difficult for young people?
Yeah, like, who comes up with – but that's the fascinating thing to me about football coaches, where how did you come up with the name, memorized it? You got to memorize the names of these crazy plays yourself. And like, how did you come up with them, associate it with the play that you designed, and then remembered it all? I mean, you got Andy Reid with a Denny's menu of names of these plays, and you're like, what the heck? So that's where I think the intricacies of coaching football is pretty.
Well, you know how I compare it? It's like learning a new language. To them, it's like second nature. Like they know. There's only a couple of things. Like Devontae Smith's very honest about it. Everybody runs the same thing. They just call it different things. But everybody knows once you play for a while, you know the terminology. And this coach might call it this. It might be as simple as Tiger personnel versus 12 personnel. But it's like a different language. So it's like to most people on the outside, it's like, you're speaking English all your life and say, hey, go speak French. And you're like, what the?
Yeah. So that's like even the worst football hit, like a Rich Kotite who got mocked a lot and kind of laughed at. The fact that he was able to design and come up with a full offense and stuff, like even like the basic high school coach who comes up with these plays, and I give those guys a lot of credit for being able to
I would say, football innovation of football trickles up. It's the high school coaches who are the innovative ones, especially offensively. And then it trickles up to college, and then it trickles up eventually to the NFL. It's the exact opposite of normal sort of things where it trickles down, but they deserve a lot of credit. But the thing about it is now with the internet and Google and everything, and there's full playbooks you can find. Anybody can find. Just go on Google right now if you're listening. You can find playbooks of legendary coaches, and you can copy them. Everybody copies from everybody in the NFL. It's not even that. It's because you can find that information, but can you teach it?
Yeah.
That is the difficult part. And that's where I always say Vic Fangio stands out because many.
It's funny you say that because, I don't know. Have you guys discussed, what Zach Bond said this week regarding, where they are defensively as opposed to this time last year, how far advanced that they are. And that's learning the terminology. When he says this, what am I supposed to do? And in football, it's a split second that can hold you back. If that split second made you think, wait, am I supposed to do? Yeah, I'm supposed to do that. Bang. That split second of thinking could be the difference in somebody burning you for a touchdown or not. And now when you hear that play, knowing exactly what you do, as opposed to learning it this time around, there's something to be said for that. Now, there's still 4 to 5 guys who have to now learn the defense, which is why, John, I had you on Sunday morning on my Fanatic show, and I asked you who's a better fit. If they just opened up the pocketbook and said, we're going to bring one more guy in, is Alexander the right guy, or would Justin Simmons be the right guy based on what Bond said? Because Alexander would have to learn the defense essentially, where Justin Simmons would step right in and maybe not miss a beat with the terminology.
Yeah. And from that perspective, and with those two players for that reason.
But Alexander's would be the better player.
Yeah, Alexander's the better pure player at this stage. Justin Simmons was a great player, but he's descending. With the point of Zach's comment, which we did talk about earlier this week on the show, I think he's 100% right with the guys that were here. But to your point, you made that a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot of change. So all these new guys are going through the same thing that Zach Bond was going through. Now, there's guys that need to elevate their game that were here. And that's where the hope comes with the Alex Hunts of the world, and the Jeremiah Trotter Juniors. But, other guys, like there's a lot of people hyped up about Drew Makuba, obviously. Well, he's got to learn everything. Adoree Jackson's got to learn everything, even as a veteran player. Ty Robinson, a lot of people are fired up on Ty Robinson. He's got to learn everything. So for the guys that are here, it's easier for them. But for the new guys, they got to go through the same thing. But hey, that's why Vic's Vic. Vic, all the people that have copied Vic over the past decade, none of them, they copy. You can copy. That's my point of going on Google and searching. You can copy everything Vic does. Honest NFL, the great Twitter account, always give him a shout out, does a phenomenal job. puts literal schematics of what Vic Fangio's defense is constantly. You can just go to his Twitter and get everything the Eagles do, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you teach it?
Absolutely. Yeah. You could certainly. And another thing about it is, we talked about, I think Jair Alexander has a connection with the secondary coach here, whose name is escaping me.
Christian Parker.
There you go. Right. How much those things factor in as well. The comfortability with who's teaching it. Hey, I respect this guy as a teacher, as opposed to, this guy's a blowhard. I'm not really paying attention. And that seemingly could have been what happened to the Eagles 2 years ago, is they didn't buy into who was teaching it.
Very clearly, they didn't buy in who was.
And you see the difference. A very similar scheme, a lot of similar players, didn't go so well. Why? Well, some of the guys, and it also goes to show it only takes one or two guys not to buy in. You get a guy in the secondary who says the secondary coach don't know his ass from his elbow. I ain't listening to him. And that could be one of the 4 guys or 5 guys in the secondary saying, nah, I'm not buying what this guy's selling.
Well, and even somebody with the history of Vic, I mean, look what happened in Miami. You had certain big name guys who are like, I don't want to change. And they didn't buy in.
Yeah. And
they were still pretty good, but they weren't as good as they could have been because you had certain guys who wouldn't buy in.
And that's a good, I thought, we got to the point, it feels like, with Vic Fangio already, just like, it's a fait accompli that it doesn't matter who the player is. It's like Stoutland. You give him a player, that guy's going to be good. Why? Not because I think the player is good, because Stoutland's that good. Are we at that point with Fangio almost where does it matter? Just give him a player and he'll make it fit. And although we saw that with Bryce Huff wasn't the case, but what he did is he bypassed Huff and just found somebody else that he liked better.
Yeah. Well, I think we are at that point, but I think to your point, there are people forget the bad ones, like, Bryce Huff last year because it worked out. Andre Dillard on the offensive line with Jeff because they found Mailata. So who cares?
Yeah. Well,
as long as
to almost you can connect it to our conversations about Roseman from years gone. You're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You're going to get draft picks wrong. You're going to get signings that don't work out. It happens. Not everybody does everything, in the world we live in today. I got news for you. Not everybody's decisions are 100% the right decisions, whether they're the greatest of all time or the worst of all time. Sometimes the worst makes a good decision, and sometimes the best makes a bad decision. So every signing that Howie makes is not going to hit. And, in 2017, a lot of them did work out. But there's been signings since 2017 that did not work out.
No,
Bryce Huff is one of those things that did not work out. They've got other ones that, you had higher expectations for, and they didn't pan out. But you've got to just limit those things. But that doesn't mean that Vic Fangio is going to be able to get 5 new guys all buying in and getting the best out of them. There's going to be somebody here where we might be looking at in week 5 or 6 saying, that hasn't worked out so well so far. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, there's a lot of change. And even the guys who, were backups, Soren Burks, most notably, Isaiah Rodgers, man, they got a lot of defensive talent they got to replace. And to imagine every single one of those changes working out, generally not the way sports happens.
I think, too, if I were to ask either one of you guys, the bad Howie moves, the one that stands out the most is Rieger. That's the obvious one. And then generally people go to JJ Arcega-Whiteside. After that, because the guy was getting killed here for years, but it's really like 3 to 5 moves that really stood out, and people just hammered those moves for a long period of time. But do you guys remember Fire Howie was like, I said there was a time when I was doing the radio show, he was the most hated Philadelphia sports figure in the city, and there wasn't a close number 2.
I think people forget. I think if
Think
you go
about
back
that.
to
Think about that, though. At that time, whatever years these were, prior to 2017, He was
the only thing that sticks out to me, Mike, about the Amazon show on the Eagles. Remember the Amazon? What's it
Yeah, I
called?
didn't really watch that thing very intently. That was 2019, right?
Yeah, I don't even know. I think it was
2019 because Wentz was still here.
All it was a bunch of WIP clips interspersed. It was not a great show, but the one thing that stuck out to me was that they had a part of the show where Howie was driving, and he explained he's got the darkest tint possible on his car. So when he's driving, people don't recognize him because they would, say some untoward things. So yeah, things have changed dramatically over the past few years. And rightfully so. I mean, it starts with the drafts. They're on a heater when it comes to drafts. Yeah.
And a lot of times the context isn't there. Like I see people in the chat talking about, he passed on DK Metcalf. Well, what if we told you how he wasn't allowed to draft DK Metcalf?
Yeah, he wasn't allowed. He was off the board. He was
the doctors said, listen, you can't draft this guy. He's got a neck problem, and therefore he has a medical red flag. So he was not even on the Eagles draft board. So you could blame the Eagles doctors for that, but not Roseman missing the pick. Yeah. Now, the Rieger stuff, there was a lot of wonky reporting around who was pushing for Rieger and who didn't want Rieger and who did want Rieger. That stuff always seems to happen, right? When you miss a pick.
Well, you even saw the dust up the one time with Howie and boy, I'm having senior moments this week. But between Tom Donahue, thank you. Between Milton Williams and Alim McNeil, and Tom wanted Alim McNeil and Howie wanted Milton. And it both worked out, by the way. Both ended up being right. Both are very good players.
Would McNeil have been a better fit here?
Well, I think at the time they wanted a run stuffer from Tom's perspective. So, I mean, he's a different type of player, and he's turned into a very good all-around player. But I would say fans would like the pass rusher more. So, for the fans, it worked out with Milton Williams. Who's better? You can make a strong argument for both, depending on what you want. You could say
whose paycheck's better.
Well, they're both. Alim got a huge paycheck too. Yeah, he's right there. He's right there. Not quite. Milton's is better because he went later. But I mean, I can look up his contract, but he's close. He got a huge extension. So they both worked out very well. But you see some of that kind of. Now, over the years, I do believe that from some things I can't talk about, some things I can talk about. And
Xander, that's what you need to pull out.
Yeah. Exactly, Mike.
I do believe
that's your job.
the coaching staff was the one pushing for Jalen Reagor. They wanted, as funny as it sounds at the time.
Yeah, well, that was the wonky reporting. It was, it felt like Peterson was kind of pushing for Reagor. Yeah.
They wanted, as funny as they wanted a Tyreek Hill-like impact on the offense, as funny as it sounds. Yeah. And they wanted somebody who could stretch the field vertically and horizontally. And they thought Jalen was more explosive than Jefferson, but the scouting staff said Jefferson's better. Remember, at the time, I think a lot of people forget, and now he's here, Terrace Marshall. They had Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Terrace Marshall in the LSU receiving room. So Jefferson played almost exclusively in the slot.
Yeah.
In college.
Well, what also a lot of people forget is that draft class, Henry Ruggs, who's the other guy? Jerry Jeudy. Yeah. They got picked before Jefferson. There were other teams that looked at Jefferson that looked at Jefferson as at least the third or fourth guy. So it wasn't just the Eagles who were like, hey, maybe this guy Jefferson isn't the there were two other teams that took receivers before Justin Jefferson. So, everybody gets these things wrong, but you're right. Jefferson at that time, people thought he would be a slot guy. And the butterfly effect of it is the Eagles got A.J. Brown. So would they be better off with Justin Jefferson?
Devontae first, yeah.
Right. Would they be better off if they took Jefferson or learned from that mistake and then fixed it with Devontae and then AJ.
Listen,
Yeah, and then I always talk about the volume. I mean, he went to a team that had a quarterback that throws for 4,000 yards in his sleep at the time. They were a high volume passing offense. I think if Jefferson comes here, he's still a great player. He's a great player. He's going to be great. But the numbers are not going to be nearly
no way.
as
Who's
impressive.
responsible for the Marcus Smith pick? Is that a Chip Kelly pick or a
I thought that was Howie. Wasn't that 2014?
That was, I wasn't here, like I said, but the Eagles basically got caught in that draft. They had about 5 players that they were comfortable taking.
Well, Marcus shouldn't have been in the top 50 or 500.
Well, yeah,
I met Marcus at the Super Bowl, and he was a super nice guy. But maybe that was your red flag.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. So anyway, they got caught and they couldn't trade out, and they had to pick somebody, and they ended up picking Marcus Smith, who was in theory a fit for what Chip wanted to do defensively. And yeah, it didn't work out. But that's one of those things where they got a little bit too cute. I believe Green Bay traded up to get Clinton Dix. That was one of the players the Eagles wanted. Well, he was a good player, wasn't great, but certainly would have been, a better draft pick than Marcus Smith. I'm trying to pull up the names. I know Clinton Dix was one of them.
Yeah.
And Green Bay jumped up to get him.
It was 2013 was Lane Johnson. That was, I guess, Howie's pick, right?
Well,
yeah, I feel like that one was more Chip.
He didn't have as much power back then. Like if Deion Jordan was there, they would have picked him because Chip wanted him. So in theory, yes, it's Howie's pick. It's on Howie's. But I kind of look at Howie 1.0, similar to what we were talking about Dynasty. I consider Howie 1.0 and Howie 2.0 is completely different. So when he came back.
But going from when he first was the GM to 2016, when he left, he was the guy, but it really was Andy, because like people blast him for Danny Watkins, but Watkins was more of an Andy pick.
Yeah, exactly. So there was much more give and take. Like, Howie's in charge now. Period.
Yeah. Well, I was at the press conference when Jeffrey said, and this was like must have been Andy's like 2015, 2012, 11 back then. And Jeffrey had said, hey, we've been going off of, Roseman had a draft board, but we really haven't gone off it. We're going to use more of the information off of Howie's draft board than we have in the past. That was kind of like the infiltrating of Roseman getting a little bit more say. And then Reed gets fired and Chip comes in, and then Chip doesn't want anything to do with Roseman.
Yeah. But then, I do think the Rager pick was a demarcation line for Howie because he got so much shit for it.
Yeah.
And
by the way, Danny Watkins, I also used to host a show with, also the nicest human being in the world.
Yeah, the fireman, maybe. The firefighter.
He was such a nice guy.
Was that Howie? What is that, 2011, I think it was?
No, that was a Andy pick.
But yeah, I mean, that's why I kind of differentiate between when it was more, and it's collaborative now, but Howie's got
I tell the story a lot of Danny because I spent a lot of time with Danny because he did a show with me we did an hour show a week together. And he always said to me, now, I don't know that he profiled as a tackle. He had short arms, the whole nine. But he said the Eagles were the only team that worked him out at guard, and he had never played guard in his life. And he had no football background. So he was like, I'm learning a new position. I never played before. He did not like Howard Mudd was the offensive line coach, and Mudd was just so tough on him. And Danny, he was not the kind of guy that took to that kind of coaching, and he just did not respond to Mudd at all.
I mean, Jason Kelsey loves Howard Mudd to this day. I mean, that's something too. It's like, can you handle that kind of coaching? There's so many things that come into
that kind of coaching.
Yeah,
Danny. I had a conversation with Danny one time, and I brought up Walter Payton. He had no idea who Walter Payton was.
I
I
know.
was like, how do you draft a guy who just is that
It's
oblivious?
boy, man. I learned that early in my career with Amp Lee. You remember Amp Lee? He was a
I do.
really good
Running back.
receiving back. Yeah. From
Florida State.
Yeah. And I was out in Minnesota, and there was a legendary fullback from those 70s, 60s, all those Bud Grant teams, Bill Brown, who's sort of like Rich Gannon married his daughter. Like, he was entrenched in the community. Everybody knew Bill Brown. Everybody knew Bill Brown. I asked Amp Lee about Bill Brown. He thought he had no idea. No idea. And then that's where I realized, that's the first time I realized that these guys play football because generally 90% of them, because they're good at football.
Yeah.
They don't care about the history. They don't know the history of even their teams that they're on. People like Saquon
that's why
are rare.
That's
Very
why
rare.
a lot of times where you get the rarities of guys who played the game, who also love the game, understand the game, appreciate the history of the game. Those are the ones that are good at doing this particular job. But a lot of times you'll say, you know, like Howie always got disrespected by many because he wasn't a football guy. And I've always been in the camp like, I don't need a football guy running my team, because a lot of times they just happen to be really athletic or good at the game. They don't understand what the hell they're doing a lot of times. They just are programmed to do what they're programmed to do, not because they can think the game, cap, this, fit, all that stuff. Like, you got to be able to separate yourself from cliques and the boys and all that stuff. And that's why I think having a guy who's not a quote-unquote football guy generally is the way to kind of go. It does help to have people that understand a little bit aspects of football, no question. But there's been always that battle with Howie. Was one of the big things was he wasn't a football guy. I had a guy who used to call my show. Oh, man, when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, you would think, okay, you got to give Roseman a little bit of credit. Nope, it was Joe Douglas. He built the team. Roseman had nothing to do with that team. I said, oh, my God. The guy wins the Super Bowl. You can't even give the guy any credit. Nope, it was Joe Douglas. He's the football guy. Roseman doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Yep. Alec Hallaby gets that now.
Yeah.
Because for
you know
years.
What else I think factors into this too? Like, how much football has changed and grown in terms of the sheer size of the companies. Like, the Eagles are a $10 billion organization. There's not a billion, let alone $10 billion, $1 billion entity in America where somebody runs every part of the show, like the Belichicks or what Jimmy Johnson used to be. Like, I feel like it's so much bigger now. Everybody's got their own role, and that's kind of why I like the role with Nick now and the way Howie has it set up, because I feel like these companies, they're too big now, man. You're not going to have a coach come in and does the play calling, does the personnel, does the contracts, the draft, everything. It's just not going to be like that.
What we're talking about in the NBA right now, we're watching the league kind of change right before our very eyes, right? You're watching how the league is kind of going away from the 3 stars and putting more investment into drafting your team instead of signing players. And it's similar in the NFL, where I think teams are trying to get away from what you're saying, Zander, is having this guy who's in charge of everything, because there's just too much to do in the world, in the game that you live in now. So I think Sirianni as a CEO coach, kind of like, you know, the guy who keeps the locker room together, has a good staff. Like, that's kind of like the model that teams are going to start.
And for all the people that criticize it, Mike, I think it's going to be in 10 years. There's going to be a lot of Nick Siriannis. Well, will they do it as good as him? I'm not saying they will, but I think there's going to be a lot more coaches like that.
Yeah, we'll see. I think the evolution of the games, it changes like every, you know, we saw, you know, the league was, remember the Wildcat era. That's going to be the new way. That kind of faded out a little bit. And you're seeing teams go back to the running back a little bit more now. The Eagles have kind of made that a cool position again. So, yeah, the league kind of turning on its head right before our very eyes, and the Eagles at the forefront of it. By the way, I was in Wawa in Summers Point. If that guy's watching, he said to me, hey, are you Mike Gill? I said, yeah. And I figured, you know, hey, I listen to you all the time. He says, I watch you on Birds 365 every Wednesday. I said,
Hell
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
you don't listen to me on the
I'm in
radio?
Summers Point sometimes. I wonder if I'll run into this guy one day. Maybe.
Nice guy. I wish I was kind of in a rush, so I didn't have a chance to like ask him his name, but I do remember that guy. If you're watching today, thank you for saying hello. I do have a lot of people that are nice, but I'm tucked down the shore a lot. A lot of the viewers are probably more up in that area. But if you're down the shore, that guy was a viewer.
Well, it's that time of year.
Yeah,
I've got a lot of people. I've had Uber drivers in Phoenix. I've had people at hotels, who watch Birds 365. It's all over the place, Mike. All over.
Yeah. Well, I said, well, do you not listen to me on the radio? What are you talking about?
Come on, man. The listener we promoted every week here on the show. Come on, brother.
Yeah. Well, it's I tell you, the summertime, the Phillies right now, what's going on with them? I mean, they lose 9 out of 10. Then they start winning again. And then last night, it just halts everything, and you're right back to, see, they stink. So it's going to be a fun summer. Yeah.
By the way, what's it like in the middle of summer at the Summers Point Wawa? Because I know the Summers Point Wawa. That's miserable.
Yeah, mayhem. There's like 4 I think it's Wawa. I think there's 3 Wawas at Summers Point now.
Yeah.
There used to be 4. One turned into a Sherwin-Williams. So there's 3 Wawas in Summers Point, and all of them are just nonstop crazy. The one that I was in was on the border.
Ocean City. I mean, at least you're outside of Ocean City. Okay.
Yeah, the one I was at was on the border of Linwood and Summers Point on Ocean Heights Avenue there. That one's just constant. It's just crazy because there's a CVS across the street. So it's like, it's like Frogger trying to get in and out of that place.
At Mike Gill's show, be careful. And those are one of the most, there's a lot of bad stuff going in the world, but one of the most dangerous places is the Wawa parking lot. And people just go.
Did Barstool Sports rank the worst Wawa parking lots in New Jersey?
Man.
There used to be the Ventnor Heights, in Ventnor Heights, there was a Wawa on the corner of Dorset and whatever that street is there. It had 6 parking spots, 6. Yeah. And the people coming, because it was so small. Oh my God. It was Tetris trying to get in and out of there.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. Yeah. Nightmare. Mike Gill, thanks for joining, brother. We appreciate it, man. Shout out to our listener in Summers Point, right outside of Ocean City. We appreciate that. Mike Gill, you guys follow him over on X. And if you're listening, actually go follow him and actually go subscribe and listen to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and his work on 97.5 The Fanatic in Philly on the weekends. Follow him at Mike Gill Show. Mike, thank you, brother. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you, man.
See you, man.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike Gill joining us here on Birds 365. Great stuff from Mike Gill. I love hearing those stories, Johnny Mac, about the reach of Birds 365. The Uber driver in Phoenix is one of my favorites, though. I mean, you get a random Uber from
man. Airport, that was like,
crazy.
That was crazy. Yeah. And you never know. You get that burst moment where you're like, uh-oh, did I piss this guy off?
Yeah, right. Well, I was at the speaking of Summers Point, that's my girlfriend goes to down in Ocean City. So I'm down there all the time. Let me just tell you. Yeah, I'm a Cape May truther. All right. I do not like Ocean City. Okay. But anyway, I was at that goofy beach bar that Cooper DeJean was at because her family was having some sort of party or something. And some dude comes up to me in the middle and I was wearing my JAKIB hat and he taps me in the back. He's like, yo, I love your show. So that was pretty cool. That was one of my first in-person.
I joke about it, but because I get a lot of hate mail, or hate Twitters or whatever. But when people have recognized me in public, it's every single one of them has been insanely nice. So
they're all softies, John.
Yeah. So I think maybe the internet's not real. For the most part.
Yeah, I think you're right to some extent, no doubt about it. Let's get to our first commercial break. I appreciate everybody being here today. All right, hit that like button. We got one super chat we'll get to before we hit this break. JD3 checks in early. What's up, JD3? All super chats, guys, go to the top, and we appreciate them. It's the middle of June, so super chats help out us a lot more here in the middle of the offseason. Dead zone in NFL land, but we're still going for you guys. JD3 says, watch the Washington loss last night. We better hope Drew is that dude because Daniels bullied the safeties as soon as CJ got kicked. That is true, John. That was a collapse after Gardner Johnson got thrown out.
I mean, they lost one game in 17, and they lost it with 6 seconds left, and they blew the coverage at the end. But I mean,
but to his point, I mean, his point about the safeties, I think it is still a valid point because we're not going to have CJ now this year.
Well, Jaden Daniels is going to be a problem for a long time. I said that when they drafted him. I'm only more convinced of that. There aren't a lot of safeties that can deal with Jaden Daniels in the open field. So, I mean, Makuba's, and that's what the Eagles want. They want more coverage. You know, his strength is coverage more than run support. So if you're in the open field with Jaden Daniels, there aren't many NFL teams that are ready to handle that. I mean, you got to be realistic.
Yeah.
That's more of a takes a village type thing. Same with Lamar, same with Jalen Hurts. You know, I mean, I saw Spags talking about Jalen Hurts the other day, an old clip somebody put up, and he's like, you know, you do everything right, and then he breaks off schedule and breaks your back. I've been talking about the relentlessness of Jalen Hurts for years on this show. Those quarterbacks, they call it +1 for a reason, because you can't account for the extra body in the running game, even if it's designed, or even more so off schedule if it's a scramble situation. You can't account for that defensively. That's why it's a pain in the ass. And that ain't changing. No matter if you have the best safety in football or, you know, down to a rookie second-round pick. And hopefully Makuba develops. But, yeah, to say, oh, if we get a safety, we can stop Jaden Daniels. Don't work like that.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, one other thing I want to talk to you about real quick before the break. You tweeted out something, or retweeted last night. The Henry Ruggs went to speak at some sort of a Hope for Prisoners event. It was. I just wanted to ask you about him because everybody's talking about him in the chat right now, and obviously I'm interested in the player because I was a big fan of him when he was at Alabama. I mean, I was at Alabama at the same time as him. I always loved him as a player. That doesn't excuse, obviously, the horrible thing that occurred. But do you think he's going to end up back in the NFL one day?
Well, I don't know his parole situation, but yeah, if he gets out,
he's eligible for parole, I believe, next August.
Yeah, if he gets out next August, without a doubt, 100%, he's going to get another chance because he's that talented and he's that gifted, and he's still young. So, yeah, there's no doubt somebody will give him a chance.
Yeah, I think so too. He's a good player. I mean, he's clearly showed remorse. I those situations are so tough to talk about because, you know, everybody's on so many different sides of the aisle with it. But I do think the guy's shown remorse and, you know, he's done his time. So someone's in here is like, well, you're not going to get the woman who was killed back. And I completely agree with that. And I appreciate the care for life. But like, how do you gauge that? You know, like if the legal system is releasing him and letting him out, do you just want to keep him like, you know, forever? I don't know. It's like one of those conversations.
Well, I mean, you got to be honest. If he wasn't as talented, he wouldn't get another opportunity. If he were just a fifth receiver on an NFL team, he wouldn't get another opportunity. He's getting another opportunity because he's gifted. Might be ugly to some
there's
people.
Gifted people who don't get other opportunities because they don't go through the same process that Ruggs has gone through, where there's, you know, you do your time, there's remorse, there's, you know, like Michael Vick's a good situation. Like, you know, how many dog people and animal people?
I'm one of those dog people. I will never be, and I've said this, and I say I will never be a fan of Michael Vick, but I can put aside that, I can put aside and say, all right, you know, that's our society. I mean, I have no problem with the Eagles giving him a second chance. But for me personally, you know, and that's the case with Henry Ruggs. I mean, he also killed the dog. I'm a weirdo dog person.
No, I get it. I mean, look, what Henry Ruggs did is beyond stupid, and there's nobody that's justifying that. But Yeah, I don't know. Like, I have a tough problem with this where it's like, what if he killed your kids or your family? And I'm like,
Well, I get that.
You know,
And
I'm not trying to disregard that. Obviously, the loss of her name is Tina Tintor. I mean, obviously, the loss of her life, the loss of her dog is a huge thing. But he did the time. He's shown remorse. Like, I feel like the guy's going to get an opportunity, and it would be hard for me to say he shouldn't get one.
Well, I brought this up with Jalen Carter, who obviously, and that's, you see how closely, if you do something as reckless as Jalen Carter, I mean, he could be Henry Ruggs, you know, if things went in even more of a negative fashion. So when you make a mistake like that, you got to pay the price for it. Number one. And, you know, when you do, if you're still young enough, in the case with Ruggs will be, and he's gifted enough, then you are going to get a second chance. That's just the way of the NFL. But from the standpoint of those saying, to me, it's a little bit different if you have, you know, if there's malice, you know, to me, stupidity, bad mistakes, I'm not defending it, but that to me is different than somebody going out and murdering someone with premeditation.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely, it is, and that's why it was litigated that way. Obviously,
and you know, young people often, and I include myself, and I think everybody's being honest, often make bad decisions. And boy, when you think back of it, when you get to my age and you think back of certain things and certain positions you put yourself in and think, boy, if this went a different way, it could have been really bad. I don't think there's a young person in the world that can't relate to that, because you do some stupid shit when you're young. And sometimes it goes in a very bad direction. In a case of Henry Ruggs, it went in a very bad direction and he had to go to prison. But if that's what was adjudicated, that's all you can do is say he paid his respect. Now, as an individual team, you know, you can have that, and the Eagles won't want him because they have great receivers. But that's the reality in the NFL. Win, win, win. And if somebody's got talent, they're going to get a longer rope, and he's got a lot of talent, and he's going to get an opportunity.
Yeah. No, it definitely was obviously an awful tragedy. Driving that fast is beyond, you know, stupid, and I'm not absolving him of that. But I do think there is some context. Like, some people are just fucking bad dudes. Like, he's not a bad.
That's dude. What I'm saying.
Yeah,
I say that all the time about Jalen Carter.
One of his biggest stories in his life was his best friend was killed in a car accident, ironically. And he dedicated basically his entire career to his buddy Rod, who was his best friend growing up. And then I think it was a bad situation, obviously an awful lesson and an awful thing that happened. But we'll see what ends up happening with it if he gets out. One super chat on it, Sammy Livingston. Sammy, thank you, brother. He says, because of the culture in Philly and all of his ex-teammates on the team, would Lurie ever pick him up? Devontae and him are very, very good friends.
Yeah, Devontae's. You know, I remember talking to him about it at the time. He was pretty upset, and understandably so. Yeah, but I think it has to do with they don't need a receiver. I mean, if they needed a receiver, yeah, I think they'd give him a chance. And this is, again, he's got to get paroled. This is if he's released. And knowing Jeffrey, he would, you know, insist on that remorse, which he's shown, and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, they gave Michael Vick a second. His history is he will give people second chances.
Yep, I agree.
Now, the one thing Howie said, and he probably regrets it, is that when it comes to domestic violence, he made that quote that we won't even look at you. I know he already regrets that, but you know, obviously each situation is different. But history says that Jeffrey would approve it.
We'll see what ends up happening. It's obviously a complex, tough situation there. Kimberly checks in. Even us older ones, look at Ella's. Look at Ella's, heartbreaking. I'm not sure what she's referring to there, but
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I mean, look,
Kimberly, if you clarify, I'll bring it back up.
And by the way, and I've talked about this before, there is a real problem with whatever you want to call it. You can go down to South Philly today, any day. I mean, there is a real problem with young people driving obscenely fast in dangerous situations, and it's happened in Georgia numerous times. It's happened all over. You saw it with the kid from Kansas City. There's so many. Jordan Addison. It's a big problem. And I don't know how you stop it, but man, other than, young people are immature. It's like you could say it's gotten worse. I don't know if it's gotten worse. Young people are just immature, and they're not going to listen to. And there's a lot of them that think they're indestructible. And I mean, on top of it, you're an athlete, and you've been given a lot of money. It's a tough problem, but it is a significant problem.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt. We got to get to a commercial break. We got BLG coming up in the green room right now. One last thing, he says, why did he have a temp release? It was a special release, and he spoke at a Hope for Prisoners event in Las Vegas, and he apologized to the family of the woman he killed in a car crash nearly 4 years ago. That was the tweet this morning from Schefter. So that was why he was out, A-team. And, John talks about the parole. I will say he's done a lot, I think, to be able to probably get out when parole comes, but we'll see how that all shakes out. We'll keep you guys posted on it. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. Brandon Lee Goutman coming up next here on Birds 365.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Shot Takers and the Tastemakers. Welcome to the Viewfinders, the Thrill Seekers, and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We go the extra mile to lend a helping hand. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong. We've been deeply rooted in our communities for more than 85 years. And that connection to members has earned us our spot as the #1 health insurer in the region. So while you look out for your neighbors, know IBX is always looking out for you.
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Thrill Seekers, and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mack. We're joined now by Brandon Lee Goutwin from Bleeding Green Nation. You can follow him at Brandon Goutwin on X and read all his work at bleedinggreennation.com. BLJ, how you doing on this Wednesday, June 18th edition, brother?
Doing good, guys. How's it going?
Dead, BLG, dead. It's the dead period, which I kind of like. Gives me a little bit of a breather, at least for a small portion of time. But I saw our buddy and your buddy, John Stolness, over at bleedinggreennation.com talking about list season, which I always mock myself. And John asked a good question, so I'll ask it to you and try to write about it. Is Philadelphia capable of appreciating a team as good as the Eagles have been in recent seasons? What's your thoughts on that, BLG?
Yeah, I think like fans individually, you can sit back and relax maybe at the shore this summer, say something to your friends among like, oh, it's awesome. The Eagles won the Super Bowl. But at the same time, I think when it comes to, being part of any kind of like online community, which we are to some extent being here, or the comment section at Bleeding Green Nation or anything like that, Twitter, the conversation isn't as simple and it wouldn't be as fun if it's just everyone agrees all the time. So there's going to be, disagreements and discourse at all times.
Yeah.
No doubt about that, BLG. BLG, I want to ask you about a player that I brought up with John yesterday. We didn't talk about him yet on the show today, but it's Jordan Davis. And I want to see where you are on this player and what your expectation or your desire for him as a player moving forward to become. And I think we can move on from the 13th overall pick and kind of say, all right, how valuable is he to now? But what does what do they want him to become? Is it you draft a guy at 13 and he just stops the run? You would hope you drafted one of the best run stoppers in the world. He's not that good of a run stopper. Do they want him to be a pass rusher? How do you see the situation unfolding with Jordan Davis? He is kind of in a contract year with the extension looming in the 5th-year option, which they did pick up.
Yeah, I think last year, if you factor in the playoffs, Jordan Davis, played the 4th most snaps of any defensive tackle on the team behind.
Yeah, Morrow was ahead of him. Yeah.
Yep, and they actually played the same amount. Jordan Davis and Morrow Jomo played the same amount in the regular season. They were both at 388, but then Jomo was obviously ahead of him in the playoffs there. So I want to see him at the very least, be a top 3 defensive tackle, which I think he will be, barring injury or anything on this team. I mean, that is the bare minimum. Especially for the investment they have in him. Look, I'm interested to see. We've talked about the fitness and all that so many times now. It's been a constant.
It's every off
season. I do think what Jordan said specifically was and coupled with what Vic said as well. Vic really, highlighting how he felt like Jordan was in his best shape later in the season, and then Jordan talking about how. Being more, he said discipline, is his word for the year in 2025. And I think, the pressure of being in this spot now where, they picked up his option, but he knows that, his rookie deal is coming to an end here. And that if he wants a big payday, he's going to have to make a jump and make a leap to being a different kind of player, I think, ultimately than he's been, at least production wise, to this point. And, I look at Dexter Lawrence, and that's it's a high, mark for him to get to, but I look at someone like that who kind of made that jump in the 4th year of their career, and I think there's potential for him. I'm not ready to say I'm giving up on Jordan Davis, but he has a lot to prove at this point.
Here's my take, and I think a lot of people don't look at it from the approach of, I always say why, and I probably asked you this before, and I apologize if I did, BLG, but why, especially when you look at last season and you still had Milton Williams. Right now it's a little bit different because Morrow, I think Morrow is going to be a good player, but that's projection.
Mm-hmm.
The way Milton was playing last season, and obviously you have Jalen Carter. Why would you want Jordan Davis on the field on 3rd and 13.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if people look at it that way, it's like, yeah, even Dexter Lawrence, who I think you point out is the best sort of nose tackle pass rusher in the NFL and the best sort of collaboration. I wouldn't want him on the field on 3rd and 13 with last year's Eagles because Carter's obviously a better pass rusher, and so is Milton. So it's like there are nose tackles like I want him to get to a point where he can be Vita Vea and push the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Even Vita Vea. I don't want him on the field on 3rd and 13. I want a better pass rusher on the field. I think if people look at it that way, it makes more sense. On the other hand, the Zander's import, we should say, all right, 13th overall pick, but that's real from the business aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jordan Davis is in the category where, like Dallas is next year, or Josh was this year. They have too many good players. They probably can't pay him. That's where I think we're headed.
Yeah, I'm curious because, look, they took this 5th-year option decision down to the wire. And I don't think that was just a matter of, coincidence or like timing in terms of how they announced it. I think that was because I think they were, thinking about it. And I think, at least from what Jeff McLean has had to say, too, in his reporting, that they were kind of monitoring, what his conditioning and attitude was like this offseason and factoring that into the decision. Now, you could say, like maybe that's not the best sign if you have to, factor that into your decision. But they did, clearly, I think. So, even if he's not playing third down, like you're saying, John, I just think we need to see more impact. Like, there has to be more. Stats aren't everything, especially with a player like him. But, you're talking about 3.5 sacks in 3 years here. Like, sacks are
well, I
something.
think the playoffs is better. Yeah, if it comes in the matter of game, that's great. I think you need and to your point about the conditioning. Yeah, we have this discussion, and maybe they contacted his favorite Peloton driver or teacher.
Yeah,
but and hopefully that gets him to the point. Where I do think is. Milton played 600 plus snaps last year. I think those can't all go to Moro Ojomo, who already played,
right.
400 plus himself. So he does have to play more in those situations, just as a rotational. And I think you need more production. And it'd be nice if he could get to that Vita Vea level where he's getting consistent push. But at the end of the day, I'm like, how are they going to sign this guy? Because I think there's other teams who don't have as many good players who are willing to go, all right, we'll take a shot on this guy. He's really talented, and we're going to give him significant money. I think it's going to be really tough from a business aspect to get to that second level contract with Jordan Davis, unfortunately.
It could be, yeah. I think if he gets to where the Dexter Lawrence leap was, he goes to 7.5 sacks and 7 TFLs. He makes a Pro Bowl. He's second team All Pro in his 4th year there. I think if you see that kind of leap, maybe they just say we're not letting this guy walk out of the building. Maybe you can get him at a rate that is better than you would expect, considering that he hasn't produced a ton early to this point in his career. But because they're just typically not in the business of letting homegrown players walk for the most part, not every case. Certainly a first-round pick, that's not really, there isn't a big precedent for that. But yeah, that would be a very good outcome though. Like if what you're saying happens, then they're going to get a comp pick for him, and they'll take that.
Yeah, that's part of it too. Yeah, I do think he'll get a decent contract, pretty significant contract, because I think he's a really good player, but. The Eagles just have it, and they have too many good players. They have too many good. That's what we're going through this year and this offseason. The whole sort of rebooting, we call it the Tamu offseason. All the 1-year deals, all the saving the cash. That's for Jalen Carter. That's for Nolan Smith. That's for Quinyon Mitchell down the road, Cooper DeJean. And they're already paying Jalen and AJ and Devontae and Saquon and Landon. There's a lot of good players on this team, a lot of good players, which brings me to my next point. It is list season. What if I say to you, because Joe DeCamera got in a lot of trouble this week for not putting Jalen Hurts on his whatever it was, top 11 athlete. So it's everything. It's all encompassing. But I'm just talking the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
And I defended Joe a little bit from the perspective of, now I would have put him on my top 11 because I would not put, it might be 11 Eagles, to be honest. I'm exaggerating. Don't get upset, Phillies fans, but there'd be a lot of Eagles on that list. But if I look at the Eagles, just the Eagles, is Jalen Hurts in your top 5 football players on the Philadelphia Eagles?
It's hard, right? Because
I can't get him in that top. I can't get him in that top 5.
You got to have Lane, got to have Saquon, got to have AJ.
Right. Yeah, those are all.
I got to have Jordan Mailata. He was the best player in football.
Probably got to have Mailata, and probably got to have Carter.
Jalen Carter.
Yeah.
Devontae Smith. Landon Dickerson.
I don't know. I might go Jalen at 5 above Carter, Dickerson, and Devontae.
For people, I have no problem with people that do that, but they're doing that because they want to do it. I'm saying, do your job. That's how I describe it, BLG.
Are you telling me I'm going Homer to get Jalen in there, Johnny Mac?
Who does their job the best?
Right.
Do you think Landon Dickerson is a better left guard than Jalen Hurts as a quarterback?
Yeah.
I think he might be the best left guard in football.
Right. But then, I think it's hard not to include the positional value, though.
Well, I agree.
Because, let's say Jake Elliott, had an amazing year, which he didn't last year. But let's say he had, we're talking about 2023 Jake Elliott. He would be better than Jalen Hurts his job, but also, he's a kicker. So it's tough.
But here's how I describe that, because I agree with you. But if God forbid Jalen Hurts gets injured this season, Tanner McKee immediately becomes the most important player on the Eagles. The most important player on the Eagles. Any quarterback is, from the worst quarterback to the best quarterback, because of the importance of the position. So to me, that's baked in when I'm talking about best football players. But if that were to happen, and I would say, well, yeah, Jalen Carter isn't as important as Tanner McKee, but he's a better football player. Nobody would wink. Nobody would. They'd say, of course. So I think Dave Zangaro does. Ed and I do 25 best Eagles players every year during the dead period. And that's how I define it. Who does their job the best? Dave does 25 most important Eagles.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't do it that way because it's always the quarterback.
Right.
Number one. Always.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think the best at their job is a more interesting conversation, at least.
Yeah. Good friend Jimmy Kemsky, I think, does the 10 players the Eagles can least afford to lose to injury. So he uses that framing.
And that will always be Jalen, number 1, I assume.
It's actually, it is. Okay, this year. I was looking at his list. I don't think it has been in the past, though.
Saquon's got to be 2, right?
I think it's Jalen Carter, too. But, I think that's fair as well. Saquon's 3, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's so many good players you can make arguments for. Lane, we have a history. AJ, we have a history. They can't, they don't perform well when those guys are not on the field. And there's so many good players on this team.
Right.
It really is. Howie deserves a lot of credit, man. And Jeffrey deserves a lot of credit putting together a system that allows you to pay all these players by using those roster bonuses and the voidable years and all that kind of stuff.
Cash.
Cash over cap.
Yeah. BLG, earlier in the show, we were talking about whether the Eagles, what they would have to do to reach dynasty level, real dynasty, not like fan talk though, the Steelers, the Niners, the Cowboys.
Can you tell it's the off season, BLG?
You can't tell it's the off season, but
that's a fair question.
Yeah, how much more? Well, I'll ask you that. You can answer that too, but I want to ask you a little bit about what John was talking about when John told the fans in the open. I hope every Eagles fan's enjoying this, because this level of winning doesn't happen a lot in a lot of different places very often. So enjoy it. Who do you think deserves the credit for all this winning that's happened in Philly? Is it Jeffrey Lurie, the way he's constructed the team? Is it Nick and Jalen, when those two showed up, it feels like things just got into high gear. Is it Howie Roseman? Like, who do you think deserves the most credit for the level of winning that they've achieved recently?
I think it's Jeffrey Lurie. Absolutely.
That's
because
where I went. That's where I went.
I mean, it's him and Howie are the common threads, basically, outside of the four players who were there for both Super Bowl rings between, 2017 and 2024 here. And I think, look, Howie's done a great job and not taking anything away from him, but I think he's also uniquely empowered than other general managers are. And that is a testament to, and look, there's many times, and myself included, where Jeffrey Lurie is getting a lot of criticism for sticking by Howie Roseman, and to be able to stick with, and fairly so, and to be able to stick with him through those lows, because I still think to this day that Howie probably doesn't get enough guff for how bad the post first Super Bowl Eagles were in terms of like his part in that. I think Doug, ultimately wore a lot of that blame. That he did deserve some too, but I think Howie deserved a lot also. Now, again, Howie quickly dug himself out of it, so great job by him. And that's one of his strengths, is he is able to dig himself out of these holes he kind of makes for himself sometimes. But certainly he played a big role in that team falling off after the Super Bowl. And I think the Eagles could have reasonably moved on from him. Other owners might have done that for sure. Yeah. So I think Jeffrey Lurie's patience and his vision here is ultimately like the biggest reason for this team's success.
I remember I was doing the show with Jody at the time when they fired Doug, and Jody was like, "Well, you got to fire Howie." And I'm like, I don't think they should fire Howie. But yeah, there were a lot of people who thought, "Well, what are you firing the Super Bowl winning coach for? Why is the GM getting another opportunity to hire another coach?"
Do you guys think that's what saved Nick Sirianni after the collapse? Like the thought for Lurie of firing two Super Bowl winning coaches, or no, not Super Bowl. Nick wasn't Super Bowl winning at the time, but he had went to one in a 4-year span. Do you think that's what saved Nick? Because I do think Jeffrey thought about that.
I think what saved Nick is him being more amenable to changes than certainly Doug was.
That's
I use the term political. Nick's more political.
So politically
if he would have dug it and said, "No, I'm not firing Brian Johnson," I think he would have gotten fired.
Yeah.
I mean,
agree.
He's more, and now and by the way, done an excellent job with it. Obviously, let's be honest, he was forced to go outside the organization. It worked out very well. And now he's back with a guy he's very comfortable with in Kevin Patullo. And we'll see how that works out. And that's going to be one of the big stories because as it was last year, when things aren't going well offensively, obviously Kevin's going to get a lot of whats. Although people might blame some of it on Nick as well. But that's just the nature of it. And that might be the most interesting story, I think, of this entire season, how that goes, because you know how it works, BLG. I mean, when they promoted Brian Johnson, it didn't work. And when they went outside the organization with Kellen, it did work. In reality, you can make a strong argument that Brian had a better offense.
Right.
And the defense was what derailed it. But the perception is, and if it happens again and you promote from within, it'll be, well, you should have won outside the organization. And I don't know how you fix that. Is there any way to fix that other than just win and shut everybody up?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard from a standpoint too. I'm of the belief that they should absolutely be doing, like real searches in these cases and not just hand the job to someone internally. I mean, they literally have to in terms of the Rooney role, but in terms of actual, desire and want to, and not just, checking a checkbox to say you did it. Because I think that's what, will get you the best candidate more often than not. At the same time, I think one thing that probably doesn't get talked about enough in terms of the human element of how, it's kind of tough if you're Kevin Patullo and you're grinding and you're doing a good job from what we know, or at least seem to be, and ultimately contributing to this team's Super Bowl success. And then when it comes for promotion time, they hire someone from outside of the organization who wasn't here to build that Super Bowl team to go ahead of you. Like, that's kind of a tough, dynamic for him. And look, it's a business, so sometimes I think you have to make those tough decisions. And certainly that's what they do with players sometimes too. They'll sign a free agent over another player who may have been coming up the ranks. So that's part of it is what it is. And that's just kind of, tough luck. But at the same time, I think what Nick Sirianni gets so few input or so little input ultimately in a lot of these big decisions, and that's clearly worked for the team. I'm not saying they should change that. That I think if he really wants, his certain guy offensive coordinator, if you're throwing him like one bone, I think he gets like one bone to have there.
There you go. So one little bone for you, and you're good. All right, I'm going to go full off season here. BLG, ready? We've seen 1 year of both Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. You reserve the right to change your opinion on this at any time, obviously. Who do you feel like after seeing 1 year is going to have a better career?
Yeah, I want to say Cooper DeJean. And that's, it's no shot at Quinyon, who I'm also very high on. But, I mean, Cooper's the younger player, so I think there's something to be said for that in terms of, like, hasn't even maybe hit his full, or at least won't be hitting his full prime, at least as soon as Quinyon might. He's only 22. I think Quinyon's 24 here.
Yeah.
Also, just
Haley Ringo's still younger than Quinyon.
That's right.
Yeah,
crazy, which is crazy.
I also think like the positional versatility is a factor in that. I think there's more avenues to success for Cooper DeJean because I think there's different spots he can excel at. Where I think Quinyon mostly going to be an outside guy. Obviously, we saw him play a little bit inside last summer, but I don't think that's going to be a long term or really much of a thing again, barring injuries. So, and also I think again, don't dislike Quinyon Mitchell, but I think one of his strengths might be that he's so sticky in coverage and he deters a lot of throws where you might I don't know. And honestly, I don't think he has the best hands either, which we'll see, if he's able to work on that. I don't know how much of a playmaker he's going to be as much as he's just a really shut down corner. Whereas Cooper, I think we've seen, is a playmaker. And not just in terms of interceptions and stuff like that too, but also what he did to Derrick Henry, being a force too as a tackler. I think he's just, has the more diverse skill set overall. So again, both really good players, but I think Cooper DeJean, to me, I think he has the higher ceiling.
Talking about Cooper makes me think about the return game because I think he's a really good punt returner as well. I know it, but I don't think they want him to return punts. And I'm a little bit, concerned about the return game coming off the spring. They signed Avery Williams, who could do both in theory. They lost Kenny Gainwell. They lost Isaiah Rodgers, who were their two primary kick returners last year. They evidently don't want Will doing it. And in theory, it might get more important. Punt returns are always important, but even kickoff returns, because they're bringing out the touchback to the 35 now. So people might be more susceptible to try to kick it in that landing zone. We're really getting in the weeds, but that's what we do here. Any concerns after seeing an entire – they had Danny Gray, Shunderick Powell, and Montrell Johnson as the kick returners.
Yeah.
Again, it doesn't matter, but it could be an issue. If I guess you could default to Cooper and Will, and then you're fine, but do you really want to go that route?
Yeah, I really want to see what Avery Williams can do. I was bummed that we didn't get to see him in the spring at all. Definitely going to be monitoring him in training camp, assuming he's healthy enough to practice at that point, which I guess he would be.
Any idea? I have no idea what that injury is.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, he tore his ACL, but that was like 2 years ago.
Right, yeah. I really don't know what's going on there. Yeah, so I'm not sure, but definitely want to see what he has. He has good numbers. If he is healthy, I think, that's something he might be able to do. Although we'll see if the injuries have taken a toll on him at all. other than that, I mean, Cooper DeJean, I think is someone you use in like gotta have it situation. If there's it's late in the game or it's a crucial kind of spot, I think you can go to that if you really have to and break him out.
I like that idea. They did that with Devontae a couple times.
Yeah. And Deshaun even a little bit. Like I think as he got older, it's like if you have to have it, then you can kind of use that option there. So you still have that in your back pocket. But yeah, for the main guys, it's unsettled. I think it's Avery Williams. He might be doing both, but otherwise, you're looking at long shots like he talked about. Maybe Taylor Morin can do it. I think he had some good punt return numbers for Wake Forest. Giles Jackson. But, I mean,
Giles was on pickups as well. I should have mentioned Giles Jackson. Yeah. I don't know if I should have mentioned him.
No, I don't think you should have, but he was there.
He was there taking some kickoff. I didn't see punt return. I don't think they did punt return.
Correct. They did not.
Yeah. So your point about Taylor Morin, he was a good punt returner. So maybe there's some more. Maybe he could be this year's Britton Covey.
Yeah.
Who knows? You never
Taylor
know.
Morin. Why does it feel like that's the first time I've ever heard that name? And all I do in my life is talk about the freaking Eagles, and I
pride myself on mentioning every single player on the
I know.
team.
I'm just messaging. I'm just making the point that we're in no man's land with some of these names.
Correct.
Taylor, but he went to Wake Forest. He was a good punt returner. Very Britton Covey-like.
He is.
Small,
he's older for a rookie, too.
Who picked up Covey? Who picked up Covey? Was it Rams?
The Rams.
Yeah. And I hope he's healthy, and I hope because he was that injury was pretty significant, but good dude, Britton Covey.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, BLG, last one for me. I brought it up to you earlier. Sorry, John, if I cut you. Do you have one more thing to say there?
No, just he was a very good punt returner, and for some reason, I think he didn't get the credit for how good he was.
Yeah,
he was good, no doubt about it. BLG, last one. We brought up the dynasty talk. Yeah, well, what do you think? How many do they have to win before they're a real? Not you're an Eagles fan. I think you are. I know you cover the team, but I think you're an Eagles fan. I'm an Eagles fan, not an Eagles fan take of like, hey, we're a dynasty. What do they have to do to become a real dynasty in the NFL? Is it 3 in the next 5 years? What is it? What do you think?
I feel like 3 growing up, people, would talk about like the Patriots.
That's what I said, 3.
Yeah,
great minds. 3
was always the number that came up. Because I think like almost not literally anyone can win one because clearly teams can't, but like more random championships can happen for sure. When you do it 2 in a little short amount of time, I think you're, it's weird. It's a weird time frame because it's like it is close, but at the same time, so many of the players were different other than 4.
Right. Do you include 17 or no?
See, I don't because different coach, different quarterback.
It is tough.
Yeah.
But if they do win one, let's just say they repeat. Having repeated, having gone to one where, that came very close down to the wire and having won one, I think you're in that, the conditions are ripe. As we're not. It's not like
they're on the cusp.
It's dynasty watch as opposed to like like with a tornado. Right. It's like if the conditions are right for the tornado, it's tornado watch. But if you actually see a tornado, then it's tornado warning. So I think that's more of like dynasty watch than dynasty warning.
I like that. I like that. I always get watch and warning confused. And
warning's the bad one. You don't want warning.
Yeah. All right. I like that. At Brandon Gouton, make sure you follow BLG on the X platform. Read him and his staff every day, bleedinggreennation.com. Mention John Stolness. He's got a piece up there now, so check that out. Always fun. I'll leave you with a lot of good stuff, BLG, and the nice drop of Taylor Morin. I appreciate it.
As always, BLG, thank you, brother. We appreciate it, man.
Thanks,
see you guys.
All right, there's BLG here on Birds 365. Great stuff from BLG. Great stuff from Mike Gill today. A fun show today, Johnny Mac, as we do here in the middle of June. Always a good time kicking things around and stuff like that. Boy, that punt returner stuff is kind of interesting. I'm kind of with you on it that it's one of the things that
it's one of those things. Again, the Eagles are so good. You're nitpicking everything. At the end of the day, if nothing works, you just put Cooper DeJean. You have one of the best one of the best 5 punt returners of football. It's just got to do double duty, which in a best case scenario world, you don't want to put that on his plate because he's so important to the defense. But if you have to, like they did last year because of Britton's injury, you have to, and you have a great punt returner. So I can't get too concerned over it, but and the same thing with Will Shipley, not to the level of Cooper on kick returns. You know he can do it at a pretty effective rate, even though you don't want him to do it. But if he has to, you're fine. So it's tough to get, worried about it, but it was it was notable that Avery Williams wasn't ready to go in the spring. And because I think a lot of people who do their early 53-man roster, like everybody's got him on the team. I'm not sure you can make that definitive assessment any longer. A long way to go. If he's healthy for the start of training camp, he might get right back to that level. But we haven't seen him, so it's tough to judge anything.
Let's get to some super chats here. Good commentary there. Great stuff from BLG and Mike Gill today. Chip Tooth, look at this. $5. He checks in and he says, back in December, I wrote you all about the birth of my son, Braxton. Love that name, by the way. He is now 6 months old and loves watching J-Mac with me every morning. He's a big J-Mac guy.
All right. Yeah, that's my demographic, the 6 months old. They love
Yeah,
that.
you're I don't know if you realize this, but you're elongating your illustrious career right now. You have 6 months old coming up, John, waiting to hear from your takes on the Philadelphia Eagles, Johnny Mac.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm still going to be having those takes when he turns 6'6", never mind 16. So
yeah,
but I appreciate it.
Big shout out to Braxton today. I'll give a clap up for Braxton. Chip Tube, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Brandon says the YNs are out of control. I don't know what that. I think he means like I'm not going to use that phrase obviously on the show, but I know what that means. Brandon, I don't know why you put that in a super chat. You just made it obviously a hard thing to read, but I guess talking about the incident we talked about with Ruggs.
Yeah, I missed it. It's going over my head. I guess
YN is like, young N word is what it is basically what it means. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Whatever. Yeah. Come on, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, come on. Come on. Put me in a bad spot up here. But all right, Johnny Mac, that's it for all of our super chats today. Appreciate everybody chatting in today. We've had a great crowd in here. As always, Johnny Mac, where should we end it? I want to end it somewhere good. I want to end it somewhere good today because we had a good fun show today with a lot of different topics between.
You don't want to end it on Taylor Morin?
I don't. I don't. That name just doesn't excite me, John. I don't want to end it on Taylor Morin, but is he going to make the team?
No, I don't think so. But again, there's a lot of comparisons to Britton Covey, undrafted free agent, undersized, good punt returner, good productive college player. It's one of those guys that seems to have that similar ability to do everything well, but he's just undersized. And I think he might make a play or two in the preseason and everybody will start talking about him.
Well, there you go. Taylor Morin. Keep it on the name to watch. All right. One more.
I mean, if you would have said Britton Covey would have made the team when he was, I would have laughed at you.
Yeah.
So,
that's true.
Britton showed it's possible.
That's true.
And they need a punt returner. It's where Anais Smith can win his job, but we haven't seen it develop yet.
Brian Pumper checks in with a super chat. What's a show that a Pumper super? Thank you, Brian. He says, NFL terms, VJ Edgecombe is the Jalen Reagor of the draft. Ace is the most obvious no-brainer pick, a.k.a. Jay Jettis. Don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe.
Well, I got a feeling the Sixers are going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. But if the Sixers stay, I got news for you. This is how little respect I have for the Sixers, and I apologize to Dave Schaller in advance. If they pick Ace Bailey, I will consider it a mistake. And if they pick BJ Edgecombe, I will consider it a mistake. Whatever they do, they're going to fuck it up. That's where I am with the Sixers.
John, you got the Sixers and Bears category, right?
So if you're an Ace Bailey fan, you better hope he doesn't come to Philadelphia because they will buck it up.
Brian Pumper, do you agree or disagree? Brian Pumper's like, you got to admit, Brian Pumper's a way with words, doesn't he? We got to get this guy writing or something. This guy's a way with words. Have you ever used the pumperism in one of your articles?
No, most of them are not cannot be published in a reputable publication. So
no, they can't. Brian Pumper, sorry to say that, but that is the truth, my friend. Johnny Mac, your final thoughts on the show today, brother?
Yeah, I guess I went too harsh on Yannick Noah yesterday. I went too harsh on the Sixers today, but what the heck? It's the offseason.
I don't think you went too hard on the Sixers. Not even a little bit. I think you could have upped the ante.
Yeah, and I said, did I just say Yannick Noah? Yannick Ngakwe. Yannick Noah was the old tennis player for those.
So we had somebody was watching because I post up our segments on the channel. Somebody watched our segment yesterday where we talked about Yannick, but we didn't have the answer yet. And like it was cut off because it was after the break. And everybody thought it was somebody different. They didn't think it was Yannick. I'd have to go and look at the comments who they thought it was, but it wasn't. They were wrong about obviously your thoughts on Yannick Ngakwe.
Yeah. Well, because he had a lot of sacks, and that proves the point. They think he's a good player. And it hasn't been the case. It hasn't been the case.
All right, one more super chat. Dio says, Mad Dio, what's up, brother? Good to see you in here, man. Hope you're well. I remember talking to Dio on the post game show many times. He says, East Coast and wrapping up Dad's estate. Thank you for the distraction and entertainment. My friend, you are more than welcome. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the support of the channel, as always, Dio.
Yeah, appreciate it. Difficult time. So, yeah. Glad we could take your mind off it because that can be an issue when you're trying to take care of somebody's estate.
Yeah. Dio, thank you, brother. Johnny Mac, great show today, brother. We appreciate it. We'll catch you tomorrow on a Thursday edition of Birds 365. Thank you, brother.
All right. Thanks, all.
All right. There's Johnny Mac. John McMullen here on a great episode of Birds 365, a Wednesday, June 18th edition. Why was that such a fun show? Show felt fun to me. All right. Even though I started off with some shitty internet, which is coming back right now. I see it happening. Let me see. Am I okay right now? Let me make sure I'm all right. Good show, though. Fun show today. And I still, a couple of days ago on Xander Time, I asked you knuckleheads for some topics. I still haven't used any of them. I got them written here, though. The only one who gave me a topic worth a damn, I think, was Slagger. Slagger gave me a good topic. We'll be tapping into some of those soon. All right. Sixers suck. You're good. Yeah, they do suck. I don't know what's going on in this chat. All right. Thank you all for the great comments today. I appreciate everybody being here. The one thing I want to bring up one more time was the rug stuff. I know it's kind of a sensitive subject to talk about, but I saw some of the comments that you guys were having going back and forth. Israel, I read. I'm going to go ahead and hit the pass button on that. I'm going to hit the pass button on that, my friend. I'm going to hit the pass button on that, my friend. But I wanted to talk to you about the Rugs thing. I saw some of the comments, and I don't, it's one of those subjects where it's like, I see both sides. Like Crowley, I saw what you were saying. I don't disagree with all of it. I don't agree with all of it that you put in there, but I understand your sentiment, and I appreciate your ability to contextualize the meaning of a loss of life and what happened there. So I think that is really important, but I don't know, guys, I feel that the guy in his heart is sorry. Now, I don't know if I'm right. That doesn't mean I'm right, but I think people in life get second chances. It's just how it works. I mean, you don't, life isn't fair. Tina Tintor lost her life. You're never going to fix that. You're never going to change that. And you're never going to help that situation ever. She's gone. God willing, she's in heaven with our Creator. What is the solution to that now, right? Ruggs did time. Ruggs was sentenced in the court of law. Ruggs has essentially paid the price. Now, you could argue the price should have been longer. He should have been in law. I get it. I understand all those things. But Where do you go from here? And like, I'm not going to try and put myself in a moral high ground or anything like that. And I don't say this to do that, but I'm a faith-filled person. And if somebody in their heart is remorseful, and I believe that Ruggs is remorseful. I do. I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if I'm right, but I believe he is. I believe he deserves a second chance. I believe that he will, God has a plan for him, and God will use him in ways that we might not see right now. And I don't know what it is, but I mean, here's Crowley. He says, pay the price. You can pay the price for a life. Crowley, I'm not the arbiter of who pay of what the price is and how it's paid. And to be honest with you, my friend, neither are you, Crowley. Neither are you. So I don't know why you're speaking from a sense of, you can quantify or put a number or a gauge on what it means to pay that price. Nobody will ever know what Henry Ruggs has to deal with for the rest of his life. Nobody will know. You don't know what's in his heart and his mind and what he's dealing with. I mean, I think and then there's like these crazy examples. Brian says, R. Kelly is remorseful, Xander. Yeah, you really think R. Kelly and Henry Ruggs, who outside of this mistake that he made, has been a relatively good human being throughout his life? I mean, you really think that's the same example? Again, I understand what you're saying. If you're remorseful, that's not just a free-for-all at life. But R. Kelly's behind bars forever, isn't he? So that's what the justice system decided on R. Kelly. That's not what they decided on Henry Ruggs. And I don't believe that Henry Ruggs should never get another opportunity. I don't. I believe that he will have a chance to show people who he really is. And like I do agree with Crowley that, like, is that it? Is that just the price you pay? A couple years in prison and you're out and that's it? I don't think so. But what will he do with it? I don't know. It's a tough conversation. I get it, man. And look, I don't disagree at all, Dank. Obviously, he made a massive mistake. Massive mistake. It's a total lapse of judgment. You could even argue that driving 160 miles an hour at that time of day with alcohol in your system, I mean, nobody's going to say something to me that would make me want to defend that type of action. That's not what I'm here to say. But the guy's going to get out and he's going to get given a second chance. And I think in life, there are people who will take advantage of their second chance, and there are people who will take their second chance and they will turn it into a bright light. However, he might do that. Maybe he won't do that. Maybe he'll play football. Maybe he'll never speak again. Whatever. Who knows what he might do? But I don't like shutting the door to those opportunities. I don't like shutting the door to those opportunities. I've certainly made mistakes in my life. Has anybody in the chat made a mistake in their life? And I know different mistakes are different severity and have different severities to them. But I mean, Weapon X says, yeah, Xander, the only thing left to do is repent and move forward, no matter how hard it is, because God can change any man. And if God is keeping them alive, there's a reason. Weapon X, I agree with that. My friend. JD3 says, I hope everyone in prison all the way to the billionaires find Christ. All of us can make it to heaven. JD3, 100%, my friend. Chris Scott says, everyone in here probably drove drunk one time. What happened to Ruggs could have happened to any of us. He made a huge mistake, but he shouldn't be condemned. Well, Chris, maybe you got behind the wheel and you drive home from the bar one night. I don't, again, I'm not speaking from a high horse. I'm not a drinker, so I don't, drunk driving is not something that's a part of my life or would ever be a part of my life. My dad doesn't drink. My mom doesn't drink. None of my brother doesn't drink. My sisters don't drink. I'm just not a drinker. We're just not a drinking family. I didn't come from a drinking family. I don't drink. I don't like it. I never liked it. So I can't really relate to that part of it. But the one thing I would say is choosing to go 160 is a little bit more than could have happened to any of us. Like, that's where I think, what he did was egregious, but yeah, I'm not saying you condone it, Chris. I happen to agree with your take overall. I mean, I'm more like you than I am like, Crowley, who doesn't think he deserves, basically anything anymore, which I just don't. I don't hold that opinion. All right. I believe the grace of God is extended to us all. And if Ruggs is remorseful in his heart, I think God knows that. But Now, this is a different discussion. Tortyville says Ruggs should be doing close to 20 years. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and debate that, Tortyville. If you're going to tell me that the time that he served wasn't enough, I don't disagree with that. I mean, that's a different conversation, though, right? Like, I'm not the arbiter of that, nor are you, nor is anybody else. Like, he got what he got. You know, what am I going to do? Hey, Judge, he deserved 10 years. Well, no, this is what he got. All right? This is what he got. And he's going to get out. Now, how do we analyze it from here? I can't change the past, and I can't change what he was given. I don't know, man. It's a tough situation. And maybe I have a little bit of a softer place in my heart for the guy because I watched him play. It doesn't really do much for me, but I do believe the kid is a good kid. I mean, before this happened, for any Alabama fan or somebody who watched this guy play, he was like a good dude, man. He did so much for his childhood best friend, which I mentioned on the show, but I have to look up the full story to give you it. But I know he did a lot to honor his friend who died, I believe, in a car accident. His best friend, Rod. You know, it's ironic that you know what he's had has been that, but I don't know. It's a tough one to gauge, man. It really is. He says Alabama guy through and through, Hansi. I don't know, Keith. I'm not trying to look at this through an Alabama lens. I'm just trying to look at it through a human being lens, right? I'm trying to look at it through a human being lens. The guy did the time that he was assigned. Again, don't come at me for the time. I didn't assign the damn time. He's going to get out, and the opportunity is going to be there. Does he deserve a second chance? Many will say no, he doesn't. I would say yes, he does. If we disagree, that's okay. If we disagree, that's okay. Sean Mims checks in. It's the family not forgave him. Why these so-called do rights? If the family not forgave him, why these so-called do? I don't know what you're saying. Let me see if you followed up with something. Okay, I got you. Sean says, if the family forgives him, who are we? Well, I agree, and I'm sure that family will always. They'll never forget. Obviously, I mean, Ruggs talked about it last night. He said that just the fact that I'm a figure, and my name gets published in the media, and my picture gets published in the media, and I have to think about them seeing that and then reliving what happened. Like I don't know. I just feel like the guy is not a. I feel like there's fucked up people. There's bad dudes in the world. And you're like, yeah, I don't really want to see that guy get a second chance because the second chance for him just means he's going to do another dumb thing and probably hurt somebody else. I don't get that sense with Ruggs, but look at Secunda. Silly to pretend God exists, but here we are. Yeah, you're right. Secunda, the irony in that comment, I think it's going over your head, my friend. I think it's going over your head. The irony in that comment. All right, everybody. Good show, man. Fun show. I didn't mean to end it on a tough topic, but I was thinking about that topic. You know, I was just thinking about that topic. So I wanted to talk about it and see what some of you guys thought about it. Let's see what Sliger says. I thought you had a good couple good comments early. Sliger says, perhaps a more interesting question is whether once he's paid what the legal system sets, should the NFL have a conduct clause issue with him coming back for PR reasons? Where's that line? Yeah, well, that's more of a realistic line of like, what's the NFL going to do about it? How do they step in? Do they protect their brand? You know, all those different things. That's a good take, Sliger. We'll see what ends up happening with it. They might step in. You're right. They might step in. It's not going to be a good look for the NFL. It's not. But again, the world is in front of him. Henry Ruggs, you're going to get out one day, someday, whether that's next August or not, and you will again have the freedom to make decisions and to do things in your life. How will you learn? What will you do differently? And I'm not the arbiter. I don't know. But he's going to reset the slate. I believe he has the ability to make better decisions and do things that make a difference, that improve, or do something for the cause of what happened. I don't know what it is. And I'm not saying he has to do that. I'm just saying that opportunity exists in front of him. We'll see what ends up happening. I'm sorry, I'm getting a text. Let me read it. All right, all good. All right, everybody. I'll go to a little bit of a better topic. I'm sorry. I don't want to go down there. I just, some of those human discussions they're fascinating to me. Like I don't know, I'm a people person first. I say that all the time about athletes. Athletes play game. Like the game is the game. It's a fucking game. I'm far more interested in the human beings. All right, I am. It's just him. That's just how I am. But so Big Mike says, have a great day. You too, brother. Fly Eagle says he should do a mandatory NFL talk in the offseason. That's not a bad idea. And I'm sure there will be things that he's going to do, Fly Eagles. We'll see. All right. He'll need to be the face for DUI prevention. Potentially, Keese. Potentially, that could be how it goes. Sig Lord, you know what? Sig Lord, you want to laugh? You know what the irony of the evolution topic versus like the God and Big Bang and all those different things? Big Bang was you know who came up originally with the topic of the Big Bang and evolution? Was a Christian. All right. So you like someone says one or the other. It's like, I don't even know if you understand. I don't even know if you have the depth to understand what you're talking about here. All right. But that's pretty funny. People say that like, you're not a Christian. We evolved. It's like, well, Christians talked about that. Christians are the first people who brought up that evolution is a possibility. Yes, it was an Anglican priest. Thank you, Dank Bird Gang. That's exactly what it is. An Anglican priest. Yeah, we didn't come from the Bird Gang. I agree. You miscorrected my super. Damn, Kimberly, my bad. Was that when I didn't know what the heck you were talking about, Kimberly? She says, even us older ones look at Elway, heartbreaking. Okay, my bad. I should have put that together. I'm surprised John didn't pick up that. Man, I should have known. Keith says the deepest Xander time of the day. Keith, I should have known I was opening up a rabbit's nest in this chat. All right. We're complex human beings, everybody. We're not dumbed down to sports takes or religion or politics or any of those things. All right. I like talking about shit. I like hearing people's perspectives on life. I do. James says, I was drug addicted and now run the drug court programs to help others fight and get off if you can. You can change if you wanted. That's true, brother. Well done, man. Yep, this channel's getting throttled. It might, Daz. Too much off the cuff commentary today. Too much off the cuff commentary for today. David's good comment right here. God was not created in a human concept of creation. It exists outside time itself because think of higher planes of existence. Interesting topic, conversation there, David. Interesting conversation there. Keith, I got to get out of here. This deep Xander time, I'm done with it. I broached too many topics here. All right. I broached too many topics. Ace Bailey, no matter what. There you go. Pump. The Sixers are not going to be good. Give it up, my friend. All right. We'll see what ends up happening. Primo says, what's your take on extraterrestrials? That's a good one. I don't know. It feels like if everything, Primo, let's just assume for a second that everything that we're told and everything we've been taught about extraterrestrial is real, where there's planets and solar systems and galaxies and all these different. Let's just assume for a second that that's 100% real. All right. Doesn't it seem hard to conceive that nothing else exists out there? Like if it really is that big, which again, I don't know. I'm not a science guy. I'm not. All right. If it's really that big, is it conceivable to believe that there's nothing else out there? I don't know. I don't really have much of a take, Primo. You know, a lot of things I've thought about. I have not thought about that one. I have not like done the research on that one or like looked into it or like tried to form an opinion. I got opinions on plenty of other things. The funniest part about what I do is that I'm the least opinionated about sports of all the topics in my life. Ask my family. It's like they could rattle off a topic to me and I'll go back and forth and talk about it for nonstop. But like sports, I'm not like, I don't debate sports like we do out here. But I do like doing it. It's fun. You know who's going to sabotage your internet today? I do not. Fredo says, my God wouldn't make aliens. He made two human beings, a man and a woman. I agree, Fredo. Daz says, I flip-flop on that topic all the time. Daz, a lot of us do, man. I just appreciate that you're willing to admit that, all right? Not everybody will admit that. Izzy says we're wild today. Izzy, I agree. This is a wild Xander time. Xander, one food you have to live off for the rest of your life. All right, am I going comfort or am I going like health? Like, do I want to take care of my body or do I want to just like eat whatever I want? Like if I was going, M. Ray says kale. Stop. Kale. I'd probably just go steak. Just give me a steak. If I'm going comfort, I'm probably going to go Italian. Give me a nice, rigatoni bolognese. Give me my mom's homemade bolognese. It'll be a short life depending on what you choose. Now, if I choose steak, Keith, I think I'm good. If I choose like a steak, I feel like I'm good. Au gratin potatoes, those are good. Has Cilio ever eaten a half a sandwich? Confirmed, no. He has eaten clams at Hooters, though, which is a violation. All right. Italian. Primo, it's always Italian. My mom's 100% Italian. Primo, I'm grew up spoiled. Primo, the Italian women in my life have completely 100% broken my barometer. All right. I mean, they feed you. They take your plate. They wash the dishes. They do the laundry. They do everything, the Italian women. The Italian women for the win, baby. Gotta love Italian. Just call it spaghetti, Xander. How about Brian? How about you shut up, Brian? You nerd. No, I'm a vinegar guy, pump. I'm a heavy balsamic vinegar guy. All right. I love vinegars. Actually, when I go to, like, when we went to Lake Placid, me and my family went to Lake Placid back, what was that, February or March, whenever that was. The only souvenir I came home with, Brian, was this little boutique vinegar and olive oil shop. I got myself a beautiful, fine vinegar. I love vinegar. I do. I love vinegar. I don't know why I do, but I do. Italian women are good. They take care of you. Italian women are the best. I should be careful saying that because my girlfriend is not. Well, she's got a little Italian in her, but she's not Italian. Her mom's not Italian. Her dad's Italian. Her dad's probably half Italian. Yeah, she got a little Italian in her. I'll bump that number up in my head just to make me sleep better. Paisan, there you go, Primo. There you go. Mozzarella. Yeah, here are the people. I love people. I did grow up with an Italian mom. My grandma was 100% Italian. My great-grandparents were right off the boat, first-generation immigrants. All right? Legendary. By the way, I'm a proud Catholic, and I'll say this. The Irish immigrants and the Italian immigrants of the, mid to late 1800s probably, they brought much of that to our country today. JM. I don't know if that's the same JM that used to be the biggest hater in the world. This is an Eagles channel. What I walk into. You walked into a 2-hour and 18-minute Eagles show, and we stopped talking about the Eagles 2 hours and 5 minutes into the show, JM. If you want to watch some Eagles, rewind. I'm not here to appease you. I got some Polish in me, Des. Who knows the place Shev's Kibasi? Come on, who knows Shev's? Who is a Philly guy who knows Shev's? Shev's Kibasi in Philly. Kind of famous. Now we got Michael. Michael's a scientist. I see that comment. Italian grams and Polish grandmother. Some good eating. There you go. There you go. Polish kibasi, baby. A little bit of pierogies, Daz. A little bit of pierogies. LOL, not a hater. Watch just about every day. JM, appreciate it, bro. We used to have a JM. We used to have a JM in here that was like, he was like, I'm calling the NAACP on you. I'm like, what? The fuck are you talking about, dude? That dude was goofy. That was a goofy ass dude. A goofy ass dude. All right, everybody, I'm getting out of here. We're off the rail. I got to get off. I got to go and like listen to a podcast or something now. That's not about sports. All right, I got to get the heck out of here. I got to get out of here. All right, I appreciate all you guys. Hit that like button. Great show today. Mike Gill, BLJ, both of them are awesome. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here, for liking, for sharing, for subscribing to the channel. All right, I want to give a shout out, the comment of the day today, to JD3. JD3, congrats on the comment of the day, bro. He says, I hope everyone in prison all the way to the billionaires find Christ. All of us can make it to heaven. Amen, JD3. Jesus Christ. Learn about him, read about him, talk to him. There's the reason I wear this cross out every single day, because if you hate my football takes and you hate me or whatever the case may be, if you get one thing from me, maybe it's that the fact that I wear my cross out every day makes you curious. And you can go on your own journey and your own whatever you want to do and read about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So there you go. That's why I wear my cross out every day. All right. I love all you guys. I appreciate all of you guys very much. See you next time on Birds 365.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.